And welcome back. Dylan here from Indiverse.io, the world's only tabletop marketplace where you can find all the latest and greatest indie tabletop games that have been crowdfunded successfully or self-published successfully. You can check us out at Indiverse.io, but also stick around and check out all of our other YouTube content. We interview crowdfunding creators, we interview people in the industry, and we do this lovely tabletop review, tabletop role-playing game review, the book club, every month with our lovely co-host.
Me, Nicholas Rabinia, from one of the Ravens from the Ravensridge Emporium. Yeah, you can find us at ravensridgeemporium.com, along with a lot of the games that we design and publish in-house, like Cartograph or Caught in the Rain.
Some exciting new stuff coming out. We just got a chance to try out Thousand Rats Destroy City, which was absolutely phenomenal.
Devour City.
Devour City, Destroy, Devour. Man, I'll get it right at one point. It's hard to keep all the names of games in the brain, but we do our best. But we're not here to talk about it today. Yeah, that's it. That's it. Today we're here to talk about something theming and mechanically I loved so much. So we're on Sins of the Father. If you're here, we expect that you've read the PDF. If you haven't, you should read it first. It's not a super long one, only about 60 or so pages, and then come back and listen to this. So, high-level thoughts. Sins of the Father. What do you think?
High-level thoughts. I really enjoyed the game. I thought I really loved this premise. You know, the whole idea of these people who for the sins of their parents and grandparents or whatever, owing a debt to this like dark lord, this I guess evil or tempting entity in the world, and that calls on them to like do various nefarious deeds or whatever to pay back that debt in return for those like sinful gifts that they have. I think it's such a fun kind of story to tell that can get I really feel like I can go into some really bonkers directions. Really marry that whole like humor and I guess like seriousness. Those kinds of tones I think can gel quite well in a horror space, and I think this game hits it really well, and the mechanisms broadly support it from what I read. Yeah. What about you? What do you think overall?
I fell in love with this from like the opening letter. The very first
Oh,
there's always a bit of lore that comes. Well, not always, but often there's some lore that comes with like one of these tabletop role playing games that's not tied into like a known IP or something like that. And the way they do it for this was just that beautiful letter at the front that sort of gave you that sort of thing that like Shadow of Astron I feel like tried to give us, and obviously that big chunkier format of like it's people in the narrative telling you about the experience that you're going to have at the table, like, and it automatically just throws you into the vibe, the what you can experience or expect to experience from like the repercussions of like you say a future person further down the tree, up the tree, the family tree. I think it's down the tree because it branches up, right? Yeah, it must be down the tree.
yeah.
Makes
I
sense.
actually don't even know. I feel like I've seen it both ways,
Yeah,
so I'm
yeah.
not sure.
Where like it's the tree roots going down, or it's like the tree going up. Yeah, no, okay, all right. Maybe that's a
It's tree either way you look at it.
yeah, exactly. But yeah, I loved just that in there, and like you say, the mechanics and theming for the game just mesh so well together. How they use not a dice system, purely standard playing card deck with jokers. So all four of your jokers in there as well, and oh my lord, we talked about how Avatar Legends last month has this beautiful meshing of theming for the show that's so well known versus what they present in the game. And I think that this sort of almost took it to the next level because it needed nothing more than just like an understanding of like, this is what you're doing and this is why you're doing it and this is how we represent it. And the theming is so well known at like a very broad level that people can take their interpretations to how this game is going to work, and it delivers so punctually. So yeah, I am super excited. There's a couple of things in this one that I didn't like maybe not the traditional reasons, but we're going to talk about them, and I'm excited because I know that there's one or two before the recording session, the mystical unknown time to all you lovely viewers. We talk a little bit about like, we've got a prickly thing to talk about. We won't go into detail, so I'm excited to find out the other end of these prickly bits.
Yeah. I also have one thing that I'm just a little confused by. I wouldn't say it's
Oh,
prickly, but I was
okay.
confused by it, and I'm keen to hear your thoughts.
So
Yeah.
we sort of touched on the theming, but let's go on that for a bit of a deeper brush. So your family is in service to this Dark Lord. This Dark Lord is not the devil. It's not Cthulhu. It's not anything specifically named, and you can give it a name and sort of follow the themings if you like. But the game also gives you a lot of ability to create your own Dark Lord with either random tables or just stuff for inspiration, which cannot amazing means that you're running a game for whatever table you're bringing. Like I can see, and you talked a little bit about the seriousness of this game versus the humor side, and it's something they acknowledge in the PDF itself, which I love so much. Not being just led by the expectation of like a single DM with like their perspective of what this game could be, I think is really good. It means you can bring it to first timers, hardcore role players, people who want something lighter, something funnier in that sense, but you can also do something really really heavy if you wanted to. It's nice to have that wall broken for you. Is like these are not hell people. These are people who do their normal lives. Like I could see myself running like people running an old blockbuster or something, and they're all hellborn. Like they're not massively successful. They're not like having to go through. They want to stay off the radar, and then they're still having to do these things to pay off the sins of their family, but they don't want anything to do with it. Like, or you could just play like the classics, like they're all corporate workers doing their own thing, and then they meet up at night and go do whatever the hell they're doing. So, I
Love that idea. Just a quick aside, like people, I would love this idea of like a blockbuster that's still like booming business because they've made some dark deal. That's so great. I'm actually running a campaign in Ultraviolet Grasslands at the moment
oh
where
yeah,
I'm using an in-house system that we're developing, but the player characters all work at a Video Easy, just as DVDs were starting to become a thing, and then they get like pulled into the Ultraviolet Grasslands, and there's some really weird things about where the Hollywood movies and DVDs come from.
okay, wow, all right, wow.
Yeah, so
Look,
it's just
yeah,
interesting you brought Blockbuster up.
I love that. We could just take something so simple like that because it doesn't require you to. Everyone is making a deal directly, like it is something inherited. You can have someone who is like actively dealing with their Dark Lord at the character creation stage, which is awesome. Like having variety and allowing people to bring what they feel they'd like to the table is something I think is really, really bled into this system because there's choice. I think that's the big thing from a theming and mechanic that like marry really well is like it's choice and everything is player choice other than the challenges, the skill tests. Like when you're competing with something else, it's all about do you want to do that? And if you can't, what are you willing to do to accomplish the goal? And that's so perfect for the theming. Yeah.
Definitely, yeah. And just on those random tables, I I think recently, and the more solo role playing games that I've been seeing crop up and that I've been playing, the more I think that a lot of the role playing games that we have should be doing more to ground everyone in their reality, the table's reality of what they want this game to be. So like having all of those random tables at the start to define who their character is and who the Dark Lord is, and maybe like a few questions about what the general I guess truths are, to borrow from Ironsworn,
Mm.
of the setting, I think is such a great way to put everyone on the same page. And as you say, this one's so open with so much choice that it's probably even more important for this kind of game that everyone is on the same page. They're agreeing to the same kind of conceits and why they are doing what they're doing.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's kind of the thing of it reminds me of the need to express itself like games like Eat the Reich and other games that have like really I mean Eat the Reich is there's no question it's a very sensitive subject matter. But this game could be seen as like again because it has that like humor side, serious side, it's hard to know what you're going to get when you come to the table. If I knew it was going to be more of the humor side, I'd be happy with anyone at the table. But not knowing, I feel like it could be a game where I'd want to have that sort of like session zero with people I didn't know, or just like a good social agreement at the table with people, even if I knew them, because there's temptation and that to flip these into something darker or just something people are uncomfortable with. But
And
again,
I think this game, I think you need to do that though, right? You can still do that and have the humor, but it is ultimately dealing with those dark themes. Like these are
Yeah.
sinful characters that you're playing as. The game tells you that
Mm.
they are greedy, they are prone to anger, you know, whatever it is, right? And they are benefiting from that, but having to pay off a debt, do some nefarious deeds in order to keep those powers. So there's no escaping it. But you're
No.
right, you know, that's why we have safety tools in this play space for when you play these kinds of games with people that maybe you don't know. You're not aware of what their boundaries are, like, you know, like you would be with your friends. You know, you probably don't really need safety tools necessarily there because you know those people, you know their boundaries. I hope.
Yeah. Yeah.
Otherwise, use yeah.
Well, I think that's something you raised that they don't have for this game, which I don't think you need to have like encourage the use of safety tools with every single role playing game out there. There's quite a few that I would say that you probably don't need them, but I don't think it hurts to have them. And I think this game would have benefited for first timers or people new to the space for just mentioning some of the safety tools that we do use, just because of the theming in there.
Yeah. I think a brief mention of safety tools broadly, and it doesn't have to be specific tools. I don't think. Maybe just general guidelines, like if you are playing with people that you're not familiar with, or even you are maybe a bit familiar with but not sure about these things. You know, this is like a content warning. Are people okay with those kinds of things? And maybe some themes we just agree to, you know, ignore or fade to black or whatever it is.
Yeah.
I think that would really all it needs to be.
Yeah. Anything else on theming you wanted to touch on? I think mechanics is like where I'm like, this is where the real meat of this is going to come out because there's so much good in there. So much.
Maybe if we were going to move on to the mechanics, maybe a good transition would just be to talk about the Sinful Gifts, right? Because they're so evocative, they're so thematic, and I really, really enjoyed them, right? So the Sinful Gifts are they're like special powers, right? That the characters get in return for the tasks and the debt that they accrue with the Dark Lord, and they're all themed to the seven deadly sins. And a lot of them, not all of them, but a lot of them are written in such a way that I found was it really allows players to be creative in the story. You know, it wasn't just like you can cast a fireball and you'll do 7 damage or whatever. It was let me find it. My favorite one was from the avarice sin. Where was that?
Cravings.
It was the cravings one. Yes. Thank you. Yeah, the cravings one, where you can essentially by discarding some of your cards in your deck. Each player has their own deck. We'll talk about that in a moment. But by discarding some of your cards, you can effectively make a character, like a non-player character, or maybe even a player character too, have an instant desire and need for like a particular object or something like that within the fiction. And I think that is such a fun tool to give players and allow them to play with them, right? And a lot of them are like this. How'd you find them?
I loved them. I thought that, now I agree with you in that the majority of them are so broad in their perspective of like not only what you can do with them scene by scene, but theme by theme, how it's not just like they won't just interact with like people of like a specific type or people who are going to be like outside of the players have their own aspirations. Like it is universally usable, whether it's with people, places, knowledge. Like there's so many of them that really give choice to players in how they want to perform role playing. It means that like I think what it would help avoid is the scenes where people are like, oh, this is a scene where we're doing this, I'm not useful here. I mean, the Wrath players is probably like one of the few shoehorns that like is going to be hard to get into every scene, but I feel like the way that Wrathful players, they're like the Chaos players. They're going to, when things are slowing down, they're going to be the ones picking up that pace. They're going to go try and find other alternatives to, you know, hacking into the mainframe, going on the internet to like social media stalk people. There's a lot of freedom to express that. I think, and this is going to be a running theme for my entire commentary of this, I think everything around theming and mechanics, the only one that I felt was even more limited and did not like was the lust gifts. And the lust, I think, personified was always a bit weak to me. And not even in the content that it was around, like it's around sexual content or anything like that. Like that's a big thing that like that could be hard to bring to every table. So at some point that might mean that if people are uncomfortable enough with it, even with the fade to black, it may just be a gift that or a sin that doesn't see table play, which I think is really disappointing because it is that social. It is almost that only core social skill. But for the rest of the time, gifts beautiful, and the sloth is like my secret favorite burner one at the bottom, and it embodies it so well. I think that's again one of those things like theme to mechanics, just mwah, chef's kiss, beautiful stuff. Yeah.
The whole idea of gaining sloth in character creation is like if you can't decide or don't want to,
Mm.
that's how you get sloth.
Yeah, yeah, and even then, all of its things are like with indecision or like offloading the burden, and it comes across in
Mm.
like the gifts, the way that you get bonuses, the way that you can encourage people to get higher rolls because you're not having to do them. I'm like, oh, it just gives me that that
It's a
sloth
lot of fun.
feel. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
they all do feel really much like the Sins.
Onto mechanics. So card based system, love it. There's something to, and I've grown to appreciate this so much more since I think since I first played Cartograph, and you and I have talked about like cards versus dice mechanics, and the deck. I honestly could like when I see no dice, I'm like, okay, cool. Are there going to be some things that might feel a little bit weird and wonderful when it comes to just having a deck? No way, no way. It is a physical representation of like how far down like your resources you're burning through. A dice is
Mm.
like always random. There is nothing getting chopped off. There are points of failure, but you don't ever like you're never losing options on a dice. With the deck, all the time, and you can see it, you can feel it. You have to make a decision as well. Every time I want to use an ability, I'm dipping cards. I want to reshuffle. I'm dipping cards. Like it's always a trade off, and that's the beauty. That's the thing that you get when you make these deals with the Dark Lord. It's like going to like a Fey Lady or a demon, a devil. No matter who you're making this trade with, something's got to get taken back. It's a two-way street, and they're most of the time going to be the one who comes out on top. Like it's perfect, perfect.
Just really broadly, the deck mechanism or the deck system, I should say, seeing as it's a lot of different rules tied together. Every player has their own deck of cards, right? And generally, you're going to be discarding cards from there to utilize your gifts. You'll be gaining cards back from your discard pile to put back into your deck by gaining debt to your Dark Lord. So there's this whole debt system, right? The more debt you have, the harder it's going to be to resist them. And, they're probably going to start asking you to do more and more difficult tasks, right? In order to reduce that debt back down. So I found, just broadly speaking, it's a really elegant like card-based system, and it leverages the deck so well, by forcing you to like be removing cards through the use of your gifts or through skill challenges, which you're essentially like drawing a number of cards, usually one at a time, to essentially get the high card to beat whatever the game master has drawn to succeed. But the way it sort of encourages players to take risks and to see those dwindling resources, like you say, and to essentially it pushes them to gain more debt with their Dark Lord, right?
Yeah.
To manipulate the odds of their deck. It's like, oh, I know I've lost a lot of great high cards in my discard pile already, or I've used them. I would really like to have those back. Maybe we can make a little bit of a deal. Maybe you can give me a bit more debt, bring some of those cards back, right? Or do you just sort of like try to push through and burn some of those cards, which eventually you're going to gain some anyway, but it's going to be like a less of a punishment in that way. I quite enjoyed that. I thought it was really well done. I did have one question though. This is that niggling thing.
Okay. Yeah. Go.
So all in all, I found it worked really well in tandem with the debt system, right? With that whole risk taking and pushing towards getting more debt.
Sure.
But later on, towards the end of the book, or the end of the rules section, there is a section called Choosing to Fail.
Yes.
And it does not play into the debt system at all. And I was so baffled by that. It seems to give the players like a bit of control to avoid gaining debt, to avoid this whole rigmarole of manipulating your odds and taking those risks. Essentially, you can just simply, like, if you draw some cards and you want to keep them, then you can choose to fail, right? And that might have like some other broader implications, like if it does fail the mission, then of course you're going to be gaining some debt, right?
Yeah.
But if it doesn't, if it's just like a skill challenge that's involved in a particular mission that doesn't necessarily pertain to, say, failing the mission, then I wasn't like sure why doesn't it play into the whole debt mechanic? Why couldn't it just be, I would like to keep these cards, I'll gain some debt to maybe hold on to those or something like that. And then there's a second part to choosing the fail, which is where you can choose to play a low card that is less than the card, and that'll fail it. And then everyone can grab the top card from the discard pile and put it on the bottom of their deck. And I'm like, that is bizarre. That's so bizarre, because there's this whole debt system again that could have handled something like that. You know, you're taking away that tension, that agency that the players have in terms of when to bring cards back from their discard to their deck.
Yep.
At the expense of gaining debt. So those were my niggling thoughts around the choosing the fail. It just, for me, it didn't seem to quite marry with the rest of the system. I don't know if I'm missing something. Why do you think it was designed that way, or what are your thoughts on it?
When I looked at it from the same perspective, it's like mechanically, it just didn't feel right to me. And then I thought about it from like a thematic sense. I'm like, well, when you make the choice to take on or use your abilities, you're embracing that darkness, and you lose cards for that. But it's very easy to lose lots of cards because you're giving so much of yourself away. Honestly, I see the choosing to fail as like no, I do not want.
Resisting
yeah, reflectively to like the dark gifts. When you're using one of those, you're discarding at least two cards, often more. So that's very easy to just start churning and burning through. And while you do get a single one of those cards back to the bottom of your deck, it's only one. It's sure it's everybody. It's only one, and that feels like, yeah, you can resist. It's not really going to do a lot for you. So I think for a thematic sense, really powerful. You can fight for so little benefit, and everyone gets a little bit of their soul back. But does it really make a big difference in the end? Because one, it's only the very top card. If that's bad, or if it's like only one decent card for you, you're gaining a little bit back. But even though it's helping other people, not really that much. They may want to keep dipping into like the darkness that is serving their Dark Lord. So I feel like narratively, it really sits into that theming of like, it's hard to do the good thing. And like you raised, I think when it's choosing to fail a skill check or like a roll, like they tell you when it's simple stuff like driving the car, doing stuff you would normally do in your life, there's no skill check. So anytime you're failing something, it has impact. Like it is a narrative impact. It makes the next thing harder. So, I want to take that ace back, but the next player is the one who has to deal with the situation that's come from me choosing to fail. So if we're trying to bash through a door, it was super easy with my strength guy, fails terribly. The lock, masterwork. There's no way we're getting through that. I've given it. I have to pass the torch over to somebody else to do the skill check, and it's harder for them to complete than it was for me to get through in my way. So like, I think it's around like creatively making those decisions from a GM perspective. It adds into that theming. So I think it's not like a very obvious thing. My partner was the one who pointed it out to me. He's like, what about story? If you can't do this, what's your alternatives? Like, if you can't get through the door and there's no lock and you fail, and like, well, what do? We're going to go back to the drawing board. So it locks you out and moves you to a whole different part of the game. So I think it's on a little bit on the GM to bring a bit of that like failing forward in a session, and that's how I thought it would be played out. So yeah, I think that one takes a bit more work. It takes some planning and takes the ability to improv and think on your feet and go through, but I like it. But I think that I would have to play it and see how it actually felt in game to really say whether I like it or not. But that's what I feel like the intent for that piece is.
Yeah, except there's a whole other way to resist the Dark Lord, right? That's a whole other mechanism. And that's where I think maybe that perspective falls apart a little bit, because what this choosing the fail mechanism does, and there's really two rules in it, two separate rules in the way you choose to fail, is it's, I guess, it maybe looking at it in that way with like you're actually resisting the Dark Lord in this way is a better way to look at it. I like that. It does make more thematic sense. But it's choosing to fail, or it's choosing to resist the Dark Lord after you have looked at your cards, right? Like,
yeah,
but it's not quite, it doesn't quite blend those two things together. Whereas like when you're resisting, like it's an active choice to like, they've asked you to do something and you're saying no. And it's you do a test and the more debt you have, the more difficult it is to actually resist it. So, you're sort of forced in one direction or the other.
Mm.
Yeah, it's actually interesting thinking about this actually now that I'm saying this out loud. That it's like that more like individual in the moment resisting the Dark Lord.
Mm.
I do like that. I do like that a lot, actually.
It's the little beats. Like, it's not to their face, no, I'm not going to do this. Not like a big loud to everybody. This is those little quiet moments where you want to like pull a little bit of that humanity back. Or
Yeah, I still
your
think it should gain them debt though,
yeah, yeah. I think that there should be
right?
more detriment to it, or it could be the more debt they have, the less they can do it, or that it's worse.
At face value, it seems so separate
Mm,
from the rest of this really elegant card system.
mm, mm,
When I feel like it didn't have to be. So I'm curious as to why. It almost feels like I would love to talk to the designer about it. Like to understand why they had it there, because it felt like one of those rules where it was a bit like, through their playtesting, they were maybe playing with some people who were coming at the game with a lot more of that like gamist kind of approach,
mm,
and they're
mm,
really looking at the odds of the deck from a much more, rather than just like a broad sense, much more calculated.
mm,
And we're thinking, well, I know I have a bunch of twos, threes, and fours left in the deck, and I really want to keep this 8 and 10 here,
mm,
because if I get rid of them now, then I'm just going to fail all my future rolls,
mm.
right? That's where it felt like that's where the rule was coming from for me.
But like the first time I wanted to experiment with it, I would just take that option out because I feel like, as like you say,
Yeah.
it takes that. It's not. There's. I don't want a gray space third option. Those are the options you have. Do I keep going down the path or do I not? And going down
Mm.
the path is way easier at time for you to live your life and do your thing because you have already got such a weight on you. So I love that going the good side and being like, no, I'm not going to do this. It should be hard. It should be hard to make that decision. Um, and anything that's like, oh, I'd like to do a spell or like do a thing on another player and they want to willingly accept it, there's no challenge there. Don't do a conflict. Don't do a thing.
Yeah.
Just like they tell you when there's big, no high tension or thing, no skill challenge. Great. Don't do it. So I feel like it's
Yeah.
the only times where I want to, like I think about any other role playing game, willingly failing a save was when someone's doing something to me that's beneficial, but it has a save mechanic either tied into it, or if I was doing it to an aggressor, it's meant to be a challenge. Just don't do it.
But the thing is, like, this one is specifically like you have engaged in a challenge. You've drawn the cards,
Mm,
and then you choose to fail. It's not quite like the others.
mm,
Yeah, I agree, and I really like your partner's perspective on that. Actually, the framing of it's actually them individually in that moment resisting the Dark Lord. I
mm.
think that is a really great way to actually think about what this means in the narrative.
I want to talk about conflict. So, like the challenges. I thought
Oh, so
they.
hold on.
Oh,
Do you mean like the skill challenges, or do you mean like the conflict skill challenges?
honestly, the conflict skill challenges are the more interesting ones. Like normal challenges, really straightforward. You're just trying to compete with the GM's high card. They draw X, you draw X. There's things that modify those draws. You're just trying to play for high card. I really, really like the encouragement of like secret challenges versus known challenges. I think that that's an excellent tool. If you're a DM out
Yeah,
there and you roll with dice, your normal system is dice. For your next game, what I would like you to do is do some rolls out in the open and then do some rolls behind the screen and look at the table, what happens at the table when you do that, when you choose to do that. And it doesn't have to be at hidden rolls. It can be anything. Just pick something out that's like really obvious, like, oh, I'm going to check the door for traps. Do it behind the screen. It could be an open door. Use that hidden information. It is such a great way to take attention to something that doesn't require it. It can snap players back to the scene, back to paying attention to what's happening at the table, but also allows you to say or to see that like not every time you're rolling something behind the screen that you don't want them to know, it's not always behind the screen. Sometimes there are things in front of them that they don't pay attention to. So like adding that level of like breaking the meta of understanding how the game works from a mechanical perspective, beautiful tool. Free tip from Dylan here.
so generous.
I've utilized it for years, and it's beautiful.
I think that tension, it is something that is so much more powerful in this system that uses cards when there is also a game master, or if it or in a game where players are required to maybe like actually spend a resource, which could be like parts of a dice pool. I'm thinking like maybe Cypher or something like that, right? When the players are actually required to spend something, like cards in this or points from a Cypher pool, it makes that tension so much more interesting, right? Because there's suddenly this unknown, and they could potentially like spend as many points as they need or draw as many cards as they need and play their highest possible one to make sure that they pass or give them the best possible chances of. Or they could try to take a little bit of that risk, right? And say, well, this is probably high enough, right?
Yeah.
And they only have themselves to blame for that, and it is beautiful. Yeah. I love it.
What you don't know is the scary part, because you don't know how high you have to achieve or how difficult everything actually could be. There are context clues for sure that you have developed at the table, but like there's always that like thing in the back of your mind is like, is that enough? And I love having that at my tables.
I think that's the key part to this, right? Like, because for me, there's different types of like tension is like it's a gradient, or a spectrum. And if you really want that like really tense moments with the fear, then withholding some of that information, I think, it can do that, right? But you probably wouldn't want to be doing it constantly, because it would start to lose the effect and will maybe start to feel like the players don't have as much agency. And that's where you're like, okay, well, we still want some tension. And I think sometimes knowing the stakes, so knowing that number you need to beat, and it might be a little bit high, but just above what you're maybe capable of, where it might be a chance of passing, is a whole other kind of tension that's still good for games.
Yeah.
Like it's like, we want to do this. Maybe we'll still spend some resources, but we know a little bit more about the odds here, and it still leads to some tension, just without that that fear as well.
Like that's one of the big things they chuck in is like, don't overuse it, because it can have the effects that you exactly just described. And I'm like, it's so good that they are so conscious of like how this tool to be used and how it can be used poorly. And I think that that's one of those things that is so much harder to put in with the dice system, because it is less physically tense in the resource management side of things. So they're really perceptive and understanding of like what mechanic tool they're using and how it can be used well. So kudos to them. And
this is honestly a really well designed game for the most part. It's just so elegant and just straight to the point. Like, this person knows what they're doing. And this was back in 2019, was it, or earlier?
Ooh, I wrote it down because we had questions, because when we talked about Shadow of Esther, we're like, oh, it's a thing of the time. I'm like, when was it made? 2016.
2016, yeah. So it's really like a very early RPG that uses cards, and in such a novel way that works. Sometimes you come across a card system and it's it almost feels like they're just trying to replicate dice rolls and not leveraging any of the interesting things. Cards, like, dwindling resources, card decks have memory that you can play with, like there's so many interesting things you can do there, and they're just like, oh, just flip a card. It's your number. Do you pass or not?
I am absolutely running this game like hands down, with one change, and this is the one that was getting me.
Oh yes.
So we talked a little bit about it. We talked about Lost. Now, for any of those in the know, anyone's seen it, I want you to think about Lost from Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood. Graphically, exactly what I expected Lost to be. It's a little bit sexualized. There's a lot there that's not about her physical body, about that sexualization, the intimacy that is so prevalent in this book. I think I would prefer it to be desire. And not just for the physical intimacy, but think about like a lust for power, a lust for, it's not about getting the thing, like what fame would be, like what pride would be, like what jealousy would be, the gluttony things. Like, it's just the push, the drive to get what you want, regardless of what that is. So it's more about that journey, how much you're overcoming that push drive to get you what you want. Do you want to start your cult? At the end of the time, when you've got it, you're like, cool, what do we do next? There's never a stop. It's like that endless push, not hunger, because there's content in gluttony, always unsatisfied, always pushing forward. That I think that lust / desire, I think, is much more open to be expressed at the table, not as limited in how it can be mechanically performed as well. And some of the benefits, and obviously the major detriments to that, as desire, I feel like would be so much more powerful. Because the thing is, desire, in that you can still just go down exactly what lust gives you in this book. It's totally fine. Works entirely in the theming, but it doesn't shoehorn you into needing to have social interaction or to have your extras like tagged along with you in order to be beneficial. Like, you are going to have so many more options for desire, even though it crosses over into like other sins. I like that because it is more of that. It can be more of that like social piece, even though some of them, like a lot of them, have like a little bit of like that touch into like the social, the charisma sort of style interactions that you can have. This one, I feel like it's too strong a presence in here, where a game where you may not necessarily find the best way to use it.
But you're right, like it's just not really playable. Like, aside from the whole issue around like, different cultures and different levels of acceptance around sexualized content, particularly in a collaborative storytelling space, can be a bit touchy and a bit dangerous in terms of people's boundaries and people's histories. So it's already kind of a tricky thing to deal with. But then to talk about it and like, looking at the abilities that the lust gets and how they're sort of meant to be, how the character sort of is generally meant to behave, is kind of unplayable, and they because they require a lot of very contrived situations for them to really reap the benefits of their rewards. You're right. I agree. I think a bit of creative agency from the designer here to flavor it towards more desire generally might have gone over a little bit better. Yeah, but maybe they're trying to be faithful to like the whole like source material. I don't know what their religious background is. If they are quite like Christian or Catholic or one of those denominations, how important it is to be accurate, I'm not sure.
And the thing is, like, again, it's that intent. Like, what do they want to do with this sort of thing? And I can understand, like, it being a bit broader could make it harder to make the gifts work, and there might be some crossover because they're not.
Yeah.
Like, I think about the craving thing, like for avarice. I'm like, cool, but if I was going lust for power, giving someone like a deep desire is almost the same as like an avarice. I mean, I guess like the reasoning behind it would be much different, which might mean that how someone performs that action as an NPC versus greed, because greed means that you could bide your time, figure out the best way to do it, and like you want it still, like it's still your hyperfixation, but it's not like it doesn't matter what's in front of me. There is no B, C, D step. There is A to B, and that's me not having it, me having it. The quickest way is how I'm like, that's desire. Like that's pulled by desire.
The impulsiveness. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think like it would take a bit of flavoring of gifts to make them like work well. And I think that might mean that if you're not going for, because again, desire having so many avenues for it to be present, you'd have to be very broad in how you put those gifts together. But the rest of them have like, I think wrath is probably the only other one that sort of like falls a little bit short in there, but I can definitely see you playing a like non physically violent wrathful person, and that would still work really well. Where I can't see versatility from lust, and that's the thing I have a problem with most of all. It's not versatile.
Yeah, could be tricky. I'm looking at some of the gifts now, and like looking at one that it's called Dark Desires. This is the advancement gifts. So it says like you can discard 2 cards, make a convince challenge, which is just a skill challenge using convince, and then the victim that you're targeting, gives up on any and all inhibitions and gives into their deeper appetites. Like, honestly, feels a bit like the avarice one, but a little bit more like themed to lust. So there's already a bit of overlap going on there. And then like the instant attraction one, this is the one that I think is maybe the one that I could see coming up and being used well. It's the one where you can just like everyone in this scene is essentially like undeniably in love with your character and can be asked to perform a single task for that love, almost like a mind control kind of thing. And that's what that one reads to me. I'm like, I can see that coming up, like
for sure. Yeah.
Bank heist, use that. But the rest of them, you're right. Like it's just really contrived. And a bit tricky.
And even then, it doesn't even have to be attraction. It just could be like an admiration thing. Like if you're a power hungry desire person, like it's like they are enamored by you in whatever way that presents in your character. And like if you got a cult, they admire you like a cultist, like a high tier, like long-term veteran cultist. If you're going for that classic lust thing, it's like, cool, they fall in love with you. There's so many ways you can flavor that to be more broad and encourage more types of play with desire rather than lust. It's very black and white. If anyone, like I said, go watch some scenes or some like clip cuts of Lust from Fullmetal Alchemist, whether Standard or Brotherhood. That's that nice meshing of both worlds. That's what I really, really want for Lust.
So the author and the designer says that the generational play of this game is really where the game starts to shine, right? Like where you essentially pass on these dark gifts to your... Well, you're not really passing them on. Your family, your bloodline's kind of like just cursed with this. So when you're done with these characters, then you can like take on the children of them, and they start at a slightly higher debt because they've been benefiting from these gifts up until the point where you probably start playing them.
Yeah.
When they're maybe like adults and such, which was never explicitly stated, but I would probably recommend doing that.
Yeah.
So you're not playing child murderers. I mean, unless that's your jam, like your thing. Could be. Yeah. So what did you think about the generational play? Do you have any thoughts on that one?
I like it. I feel like if I was going to bring people on, so rather than having a session 0, I'd have an extremely short first generation. So people got the idea of like what it was about. It's like cool, whether it's like pre-gens, because encouraging like new system, this is sort of the people that you have. You can pick obviously what sin you want to go, and then we have like a pre-made for you. But then being able to take that and be like, cool, you have an understanding of how the game works and what you liked and what you didn't like about this specific thing or this sin. Next one you can pass over and try something else, but it allows you to do some editing, some creativity. What I love is it's like, cool, if you don't want to be like your parents, you can just play someone else's kid. I really like it for like a teaching tool more than anything else. And obviously you go forward more so in like every fantasy, anything with sci-fi or whatever, it just gets more and more insane because you have to ramp it up to go with like either the theming, the story. So I think it really sits well for that. You're always passing it down the line, and eventually it's just going to be too much for that line to take, and the whole line is always going to be owned, possessed by that entity. I think that's really really cool. Yeah, really, really powerful. I think in just the way it chooses to express itself. I loved it. I really, really liked it.
Yeah, I think it's pretty cool. I think if you're going to be doing generational play, you know, that is a time limit on the campaign, right?
Yes.
Once you hit debt 10, like that's it. It's permanent. You cannot pay back your debt. You are now like in servitude to this Dark Lord for all eternity. So is the rest of your bloodline. All right, because each generation is going to start at a higher and higher debt.
Yep.
So it's really going to shift the narrative and that core tension to more like trying to get rid of that debt, trying to break the deal. The more you play, I'd imagine. I feel like that, you know, the more you do it, like it will just sort of become less interesting. You know, say you're playing a generation that's like at debt 8. You're like, oh my gosh, right? 2 more debt, and we are now in permanent servitude. I think that really changes the stakes of the narrative, and it's really going to encourage those players to then look at, well, we really need to get rid of this debt. You know, we're going to have to do some horrible mission to bring that debt down. We're going to have to try really hard. And then I guess, yeah, maybe if they do manage to do that, that's okay. But the generation that comes after still would have to begin at debt 9, right? So they need to actually not just get their own debt down. They need to break the bloodline unless they don't care about their children.
What I picture for like a campaign is like you're going to do that full circle thing of like early on, you got debt to swing around. You're like, I'm just going to go hard and fast and burn as much as I can through it, because when I'm gone, it's only 1 debt additional for the next person. So they can keep flying by the seat of their pants. Things can keep getting out of hand, and you can build tension through like a long running story arc of like generation. When you start getting to those higher tiers of debt, when you start as well. Yeah, I really, really see long form game being really interesting if you really start to play. I was like, well, you have to pay it, otherwise we're all gone. So the whole way people come to the table at the start of a new character is going to be very different. So I'm really interested to see what it would be like.
I think it's cool. I would love to actually begin with a game of Soth. And then And then, because like whoever
Yeah.
lives, they'll get a gift, maybe they won't, right?
Yeah,
I'd probably
yeah,
make it they do get a gift, and they are the progenitor of then their bloodlines for a game.
yeah.
Here, Sins of the Father. I think that the two they share the theming so well that
Mm.
that would be a really great like cross system campaign.
Yeah. What a great, like, yeah, like I say, experience. Like, that's you learn two games, one, and two, you get two really on brand experiences that just sort of marry up so well. Oh my God, that would be great.
Yeah, and you generate all
Horrifying.
this history of like what your parents had done, and years and years later you could like find out about those things, but the players kind of already have that context, so
Yeah,
they
yeah.
can really play to that with in the role play.
That would be beautiful. Beautiful for like just the table play. Oh my God. Yes, yes. I might steal that from you at some point. Sorry.
Do it. Yeah, I don't mind.
I guess I'll have
Everyone,
to invite you. That way you can experience it from the other end. Yeah,
please do. Yeah,
yeah,
I would
yeah.
love to. Be prepared for a kindergarten murderer. No, I'm kidding.
All right, I think that's everything. Like all in all, exceptional, exceptional game. Like you said, the things that got us. I guess my thing was a little bit bigger because it's a core concept for a whole character archetype. But like a lot of the things are just little, and I guess like in saying that, I don't want to tear it down. I want to enhance what they've got. They've got a great building block to start with. I just want to open the perspective on that. Not even a bad thing. I don't even think it's honestly a negative comment to, or I wouldn't even call it like one of the things that I didn't like about the game. Honestly, I couldn't think of anything I didn't like about the game. For me as like a person to play it and or run it, for the people that I know that I would want to run this game for, I'm like, this is a stellar game, absolutely stellar. Definitely making an appearance at a table coming near me soon. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it would be it's such a simple system, really elegant design, easy, very accessible, a very simple premise that's accessible and easy to like role play in as well. Lust things aside, that one little quibble I have around this one rule is it's barely like a thing. I was mostly just confused. I would
Yeah.
love to like hear from the designer as to why that's there and why it
Mm-hmm.
wasn't incorporated into the debt system.
Yep.
But yeah, such a good game. I would say though that probably could have used a bit more of a development pass, perhaps.
Yeah. Yeah.
But writing instruction manuals, rule books, it's hard. It's
It
really
is.
hard.
It is.
But would have appreciated maybe a bit more spacing between the text and maybe a little bit more of an adjustment to the way that we are presented with the rules.
Yeah.
It's not that it's like super difficult, but just make sure you're awake when you read it.
Yeah. 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 Absolutely. And like those are the things. Like this is a 2016 game as well. Like think about the developments we've made in making these games like more presentable and just easier to process, read, go through. And I agree. Like the spacing, like when it got to like the GM tips, I was like, whoa, man, this is such a block of text compared to everything other like part of this game that I've read. And I think we were right in saying it was simple as it could be how it was written, but again, just the blockiness of it, the amount of it that is just like flooded onto the page, even though all relevant. Actually, except for maybe the inspirations. The inspirations for like go watch this show, go do that thing. I'm like, that could be something you could avoid. I mean, it's good to just have there for first timers and that to sort of be like, this is the theming that you could go for, and I understand that. But like, that's the only thing I'm like, doesn't really need it, but we appreciate it anyway.
Bit of Touchstones is a perfect
Yeah.
place to put into what is a role playing game, or like what is this role playing game?
Yeah.
That section.
Yeah.
This is what a role playing game is broadly. This is what this role playing game is. Here are some touchstones. Here's a bit about the safety tools.
Yeah. Here's our golden safety rule. Yeah.
I read the rules, then play the game.
Well, yeah. Go it yourself. Sins of the Father. Great. Bit of an older one, but still absolute classic. Make sure to check out the other videos we've done. We've done what? This is our fifth one now. We've checked out a whole bunch of the tabletop role-playing games. We'll have links down to the Discord where you can come and join the conversation. Actually, next month might be something a little bit special. So if you're part of the tabletop role-playing monthly book club, or you'd like to be part of it for this new special potential thing that we've got coming for next month for people in the Discord, jump on in. We might get some details out sooner rather than later, but yeah, something big's coming. So we hope to see you next time. A lot closer next time, if that doesn't give anything away. But that'll be for next month. All right, and that wraps it up for today. I have been Dylan, Indiverse. You guys know, you saw in that previous segment, and I'm joined always by the lovely Nicholas Rabinia. I'm going to get the side right at some point this time, man. But yeah, thanks so much for joining us today. It's that one. Yeah, it's the flip camera that gets me. Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Yeah. We'll just make shapes like the dancing thing forever, and then it'll just segue out of the episode. But that's the ending of the episode. I hope you enjoyed that little journey down the madness hole with both of us. But we'll see you next time. Bye, everybody.
We got there.